Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our episodes with some of the most interesting and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Elliot Hill, Communications Director for Verasity. Based in the mountains of Snowdonia in Northwestern Wales, Elliot has been in the crypto space since 2016 and previously worked with Cardano Foundation, Chainlink, and several other projects. On January 1st of this year, Elliot joined Verasity, which is on a mission to significantly increase engagement and monetization for video publishers on any platform via VeraEsports, VeraWallet, and VeraViews. Elliot, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Hey guys, it's really great to be here. I love that intro. Usually, like when I go on podcasts like this, people just say, "Here's Elliot from London." And I know the UK is pretty small, but we actually do have more places than London. So it's always good when someone, recognizes Wales. I'm actually from the UK's second city, Birmingham, but I've lived in Wales for 10 years. So yeah, it's cool. Thanks for that shout out. It's really great to join you today and speak to you from across the pond.
Yeah, and if I would have screwed that one up, I would have got in trouble because my fiance is from England, near Liverpool. So she makes sure that I know at least some geography over there. But that's hilarious. Let's jump in. We're going to get into all things Verasity. But to start, I'd love to know, what was your gateway drug into the crypto space? How did you discover this?
That's really good there. Good way to phrase it, gateway drug. I've been involved in crypto since like 2016, probably been reading since 2015, but it was always one of those fringe sort of technologies that I never really dived too deep into. I was lucky enough to dive into it more deeply during 2016. I was actually studying like a PhD at the time in something totally unrelated, and it was getting to the point where I was spending way more time reading about crypto and blockchain than what I should have been studying, and then my transferable skills were like communications. I just thought, I'm going to start writing about this. I'm going to start writing for some projects. And the first project I really, went all in on and really got involved in was Cardano. Obviously, they're still around and grown loads today. And they were like sort of my introduction to like base layer protocols. From there, I sort of moved into the Ethereum ecosystem. I started checking out dApps. dApps in 2017, everyone wanted to build one. No one really knew what they looked like. And then there was the security token fad. So I've seen a lot of cycles. I often say to people, I've worked in crypto for nearly 6 years. And they look at me as if, like people in other industries and like, oh, you're just starting out then, that's not that long. But in crypto, I always say that's like a lifetime achievement award. Like it's it feels like a long time, and we've been through a lot of hype cycles. But yeah, I'm still very much interested in crypto. So
nice. Yeah, no doubt. A year, I feel like in the world of crypto is like 10 years in any other industry because everything just moves so fast. So you'll see a whole boom and bust like twice over in a year's time. So
absolutely, yeah.
But I'd love to hear. So you've got a bit of a history, in different areas of the crypto space, learning a bit about different projects and being involved in those projects. What made you take the leap to Verasity earlier this year?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I worked for like a DeFi protocol just before joining Verasity. DeFi obviously is super, super interesting and there's loads of applications, but the people who are like interested in DeFi, they're your like core crypto degens. Like I'm sure we've all heard that term. And I was sort of always looking for something that had impact in the real world. So would go out and impact existing industries, and really bring innovation to existing industries. Because I mean, when I first joined like the blockchain space, critics always said that blockchain was a solution looking for a problem. So the companies to me that are actually solving real world problems with blockchain are some of the most interesting. Verasity is absolutely doing that. I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. And then the other angle was the esports angle. So I've been an esports enthusiast for quite a while. I play a lot of like PUBG, CSGO, those kinds of games. Actually big into World of Warcraft as well, but not so much nowadays. But yeah, I've really been into
on the new expansion announcement or what?
No, I haven't yet. Like I haven't had a chance to check it out. I actually sort of dabbled with Classic for a while because yeah, I'm probably old enough to remember when Classic was the only World of Warcraft. So but yeah, like I've been big into esports for a while. So, you know, the moves that Verasity was making into the esports space through VeraEsports were really interesting to me. So I sort of thought, yeah, this has got a huge potential as a project. It's really out there doing things in the real world. And I'd love to be involved in it.
I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but I hadn't heard of Verasity. But then doing research for this interview, like I was blown away. You mentioned esports. In the bio, I mentioned VeraWallet as well and VeraViews. There's so much there. We're going to get into each of those individually. But to start, can you just give us some background on the history of Verasity, like how this thing came about?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, Verasity is sort of like it's been built out into a whole ecosystem. So we can sort of think of it from the top down. Verasity at its core was founded to provide ad fraud prevention. So advertising fraud is a huge problem. I think we're going to talk about VeraViews a little bit later, which is our ad tech stack. But Mark, who founded the company, he's our co-founder, David, Robert, and a few of the other team, they have a history of working in ad fraud, ad fraud prevention. So advertising stacks are pretty commonplace throughout the wider tech industry, but they don't really have a blockchain element yet. And that's what Verasity is doing. So then to gain adoption for this ad tech stack, a whole host of other things were needed. So we need to push traffic through. And esports is one of the fastest growing entertainment industry, in the world. So that's really where the bulk of traffic is coming through now. It's these streaming sites like Twitch, like YouTube, who are hosting huge tournaments, hosting independent streamers, people like Ninja, people like PewDiePie, and they're getting like tons of volume. And this is what like the newer generations want to watch, like over physical sports and over other content streams. They want to watch people playing games. So for us at Verasity, that's a really, really key way that we can test our proof of view advertising technology, which we're going to talk about more. But so that's why strategically we've gone into esports so that we can really push those views. Obviously, esports is interesting to us as well because we can offer NFTs and that sort of thing. So we're launching an NFT marketplace. And through that, we're going to make certain in-game items available to like our users and our community in partnership with some of these game partners that we're bringing to VeraEsports. That's how that links. And then VeraWallet is where you would keep all of these NFTs and your VRA tokens. So one of the other things I didn't mention there is we also have something called Watch and Earn. So you can watch tournaments, game tournaments, and eventually other types of content through Vera Player, and you actually get rewarded in the VRA token to do that. So all you have to do is turn up, watch a tournament, say, obviously certain ads are served throughout that tournament, and instead of just like taking your attention and giving you nothing for it, Verasity pays out VRA tokens, and they go onto the VeraWallet. So we've got this sort of like cascading ecosystem of products. They all link back into each other, and we're going to tie them together more closely during the rest of this year as well.
That's awesome. I didn't know coming in. Like I knew of the products through the research I did, but I didn't really understand how they all tied together. It's kind of cool to get a glimpse of that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more as we dive into some of these specific questions. But before we get into each product, I've got a question around my understanding here is that Verasity has the first patented protocol on the blockchain. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so it's actually the first patented like ad tech protocol. So I think there's loads of protocols out there with patents, but we're the first one using blockchain technology to fight advertising fraud. So that's called our proof of view module. Now, the proof of view module is a blockchain component, so it's part of VeraViews. So VeraViews is our ad tech stack, which essentially it's our like B2B enterprise name for our product that fights ad fraud. And that's comprised of 13 different modules, some of which are like common to like the existing advertising industry. So they're off chain, they don't live on the blockchain. And then there's the other components which come under proof of view, which is what the patent's for, and they're on chain components. So proof of view essentially takes all of the ad serve data. So nowadays, like there's some pretty sophisticated technology modules that can tell whether you're actually watching an ad. On mobile, they've started doing it by seeing if you're actually looking at the screen, which is maybe a little bit like scary, but on desktop, it basically means that you've got to have the advert at the front of the screen. You can't have any overlays. You can't minimize it, and this sort of thing. So then what proof of view does is it takes all of that data, all of that, data about ads that have been served, and it aggregates it and stores it on the blockchain. Now, why this is powerful is because currently in the advertising industry, it takes like 6 months for content creators to get paid. So say, for instance, you guys started running ads, say like on YouTube or something like that. And then you had like exclusive deals. I don't think it works exactly like this on YouTube, but just as an example. And then you were running a deal with, I don't know, like crypto.com or something to advertise. It would take 6 months for you getting viewers on those ads to actually prove that those people watched your ads and then for you to get paid. So can you imagine as like content creators trying to make a living out of that ad serve, and you've got a 6 month lead? But with blockchain and with proof of view, that data is essentially put straight on the blockchain, and then the advertisers can see it instantly. So, payment times could be in the manner of like weeks rather than months. So that's our number one, like core unique selling point for proof of view. We've got patent and protection in the USA and China now. So the two biggest advertising markets. China, we're really particularly proud of because obviously they're like a little bit skeptical of some blockchain-based technologies, but we've received patent approval there. And they're one of the biggest growing like ad markets in the world. So should be a bright future there.
Yeah, congrats on that.
It's so interesting to me, like the term ad fraud, right? Like it seems like it would cover a lot of different types of things because you're just a typical user and you're like, I don't want to watch this ad. You minimize it. Like, is that technically advertising fraud? You know what I mean? And like, I guess another part of that question is there like, what is the scale of this problem? Like you mentioned, it's a huge issue in terms of dollars. And then are there people taking it to extremes where it's like I would imagine there's things out there where people are just bot viewing a bunch of things. Maybe as an example, somebody starts a YouTube channel and then they're trying to monetize themselves or something along those lines. That seems just very basic, but can you just like dive deeper into like how big of a scale this problem actually is?
Sure. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So in actual fact, it wouldn't be like you or I minimizing an ad. It's actually one of, they predict that by 2030, it's actually going to be one of the biggest avenues for organized crime syndicates to make money is advertising fraud. And the cost, like the yearly cost of ad fraud is around $65 billion. So that's how much it costs advertisers each year in lost revenue. The way I would put it in like simple terms is if like, you got a warehouse full of televisions, you put them all on at the same time, and then you went to like Coca-Cola and said, we're running your ads on this many television sets, but there's no one in the warehouse, there's no one watching them. They just think that they're paying to go out to consumers, but they're actually going to no one. And yeah, like, so content creators or content platforms would maybe buy fake views to push through so that they can sell those fake views from these bot networks. They're generated by bot networks who are like run by very organized syndicates. And they would then go to the advertiser and say, for instance, like, look how much traffic we've got, you know, do you want to spend $50 million with us? Because we can put you in front of all these people, but only a small percentage of them are actually real. They estimate that the share of like global ad traffic that is lost to fraud, so they call it invalid traffic, is 11%. But we actually think it's probably much, much higher. Like some estimates say like 40%. So yeah, can you imagine like having 100 million budget and like up to 40% of that is just gone, you know, like 40 million is just gone. So yeah, it's a huge problem. And it's only going to get bigger unless there's like a transparent way that ad fraud can be prevented. And it doesn't just hurt the advertisers. The advertisers obviously get burnt because they're losing money. But then if a content creator, you know, an honest content creator has to then try and convince that advertiser that their traffic's real. With proof of view, they won't have to convince them. They can actually prove that that traffic's real. So, yeah, we're pretty like the actual addressable market for our solution is $65 billion, you know, probably just in like the Western world. And that's going to be even bigger in China as they grow.
You sort of answered my question there, because what I was going to come back with is, who is this actually really good for, right? Because to me, on the surface, it seems like advertisers. I mean, if I'm spending ad dollars, I want to know that people are actually seeing that. So it's a clear advantage. I see from the content creator side that, you know, the window that's shorter is great, not the 6 months. But I was going to say, does that not make it even harder for content creators who are just honestly putting out content, who like maybe they're making a modest amount through YouTube advertising, just to keep using that as an example. But now if it's like, actually, it's only 20% of what you thought people are watching these ads, is there a way that could cut in and actually be negative for content creators?
For the honest content creators, no, it could only really be better for them. So the content networks, like content delivery networks that are pushing fake traffic, they're essentially bringing advertisers like spend down. So if they see that they're not making very good sales for like 100 million of ad spend, they'll just say, well, we're going to cut our ad budget down to 50 million because we think like only 90% of our ads are getting through to real people, or maybe even less. But if they're making higher revenues because they're being served to more real people, and more real people are actually going out and buying the products, they'll have more budget to spend with content creators. And they'll also trust content creators more. So what we want to get to is a point where an advertiser would say, oh, okay, like this content creator, and some of these content creators, you know, we talk about them and they could be as big as like Sky or someone like that. You know, we're talking like really big networks that serve ads every single day, not just like small content creators are one, you know, demographic, but we're also talking about like multi-million-dollar companies that produce content on demand, video on demand. But for that advertiser, they could see, okay, they're using VeraViews, so we know that like 100% of their traffic is going to be real, so we're going to spend more money with them. So that's what we want to get, like, you know, up to the point of, we want to be like the de facto ad tech stack that people know as like seal of quality. We're also doing that through like professional body membership. So a member of the Internet Advertising Bureau here in the UK. We're heading to one of their events next week. Actually, that's come up pretty fast. And then we're trying to get more involved with their standards body. So we're probably going to go for their gold standard certification. So really we'll become like a household name in advertising circles. And they'll know that if it's like powered by VeraViews, then it's like quality and it is actually going to prevent ad fraud.
And so I'm still just trying to grasp, I guess, who is VeraViews for? Like, who is your audience? Is this the technology for the ad networks to then utilize, or is VeraViews an ad network itself powered by this technology? You know, how exactly, you know, who's your audience and how does that part work?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good question. So VeraViews is the ad tech stack. So it's like the ad delivery network essentially. So we're integrated now in this platform called Brightcove, which has like publishers use it. So like some of the publishers that use it include the BBC here in the UK. Dunkin' Donuts use it as well for their like video on demand content, UK TV, loads of really big publishers and like content creators, content networks. And what they can do is they can just use a really simple plugin and use VeraViews for all of their ad delivery. So they would essentially like license VeraViews. We would get like a revenue in that way. It's like sort of software as a service, and like to compare it to traditional like software. And we would get a portion of their total advertising like serve, if you know what I mean. So they would negotiate like a deal with an advertiser and they'd say, look, we're going to serve that through VeraViews, which is the ad tech stack that we're using. And that's all embedded in a really easy to use interface that they can just switch on. So it's for content creators. It could also be, content networks. And it could also be for the advertisers themselves. They could choose to run ads directly through VeraViews with selected publishers who we have partnerships with.
Ulf, do you realize our audience has been either watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? No, they should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment and turn on notifications. And if you're listening to this podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. So go check out the episode description. You can find all that information below. And we have an update on the NFT, don't we?
That's right. We didn't previously mention this, but this NFT for OG supporter is a one of one. There will only be one of this kind ever minted, and we have a few surprises for the person who purchases it. The link is in the episode description.
And back to the episode.
Yeah, so I have a question around VeraViews in regards to, you know, going back to something you said earlier, which is people have criticized blockchain technology saying, you know, it's a solution looking for a problem. The way you've explained VeraViews is that, you know, the real core sort of value prop here is around the fact that the views are authenticated. There's the proof of views. They're on the blockchain. So it's any, you know, the advertiser, whomever can go verify those or see that they're already verified and they're there. And so therefore there's faster payout time. Is that in itself, is that the main reason why the blockchain technology is being used here? Or is this not something that could just be built as a traditional SaaS software?
Yeah, so I mean, and these sorts of like databases already exist in traditional like ad tech stacks, but the advertiser and the content delivery network, they would have to basically trust what they tell each other. So say like a content network, like like a big primetime television show that shows tons of ads. They have all this data about ads and how many people it went out to. And then they hand it over to the advertiser and they say, this is our ad serve. Go away and believe it or not sort of thing. Whereas with proof of view, because all of that data is logged, as soon as it's like, as soon as a real view is logged through our other modules, proof of view as a module takes it and it stores it on the blockchain. So that's fully transparent. An advertiser could go and actually verify on the blockchain. And at the moment, we use the sidechain of Ethereum, that was a real ad. So that'll be stored in metadata on the blockchain. That was a real ad view. So they no longer have to just blindly trust that the content network has given them these views. So not only does it prevent fraudulent views, but then it also adds this layer of like trustless, technology where one party doesn't have to rely just on like trust and goodwill of the other. I think that's really important in loads of blockchain things, this trustless nature. I mean, trustless as a phrase, like as a buzzword, almost sounds bad, like it removes trust from a business relationship. But I mean, many business relationships that are founded solely on trust, they don't always go the way that one party would hope. People and even companies can sometimes be dishonest, especially about maybe ad serve or something like that. And with a trustless and immutable layer through blockchain, we can remove that so one party can just have like totally seamless access to the data whenever they need it.
One of my understandings is that Verasity is aiming to tackle the problem of NFT fraud as well. So maybe you can explain how that's done. And also just the stat I came across was that there was 100 million, which is much smaller than the whatever billion you said for ad fraud problem in general. But considering last year was kind of what felt like the official start of NFTs. I know they existed back 2017 and even earlier, but that's quite a big problem, like $100 million on NFT fraud. So how does that work exactly? Like, how is the technology helping prevent that?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. So we're going to be releasing our NFT marketplace. It's called VeraVerse, and this is also going to have like a minting function for NFTs. And when you mint an NFT on the VeraVerse, it'll be protected with proof of view technology. So it's going to have proof of view in the smart contract at the proof point of mint. Now, to understand why that like proof of view certified mint is important, it's worth looking at some statistics in the NFT fraud industry. So yeah, like you say, like 100 million in NFT fraud already. But what is NFT fraud? Like anyone can go to an NFT, right click it, save it, and they've got a picture of that NFT. Now, is that fraud? I mean, people have saved intellectual copyright on the internet for, since its existence. However, what we're seeing is, and what the current leading like marketplace for NFTs, just OpenSea, have just said that up to 80% of new mints through their minting protocol are fraudulent. And what they mean by this is they're just blatant copies of existing work. So rather than people, say, getting a Bored Ape, right click save, what they're actually doing is getting a Bored Ape, right click save, and then mint it as a new NFT and try and sell it as an original. So that's one major problem. The other major problem is people taking artwork and claiming it as their own. So maybe existing artwork, someone could maybe like try and rip off the Mona Lisa. Obviously, that's a ridiculous thing to say. But imagine someone's painted a picture in real life. Someone could take that and try and mint it as an NFT and pass it off as their own work. So we really need a way to stop this. And one of the ways that I always try and make it a simpler concept to understand is we need something like, how when you go and buy, say, a bottle of wine from France, you can see that it's from the Bordeaux region. And often it'll have like a little hologram on the bottle, with like either an RFID code or like a QR code that you can scan. And it's like a certificate of authenticity. And that sometimes is even backed up on the blockchain. We need something similar for NFTs. And that's what proof of view is going to be. So with proof of view, a user could mint via proof of view certified mint. They would then have that NFT stored in the VeraVault, which is our own like custodial solution that we're building out for NFTs. The VeraVault indexes the content. So it would have an index of when that exact piece of artwork was created and put on the blockchain, and that's certified through proof of view. And then it basically records the NFT creation and the original owner credentials, and then it can track where that NFT has been through its lifetime. So it's essentially like supply chain traceability for NFTs. And one of the things that's going to be most powerful about this is, say you're the owner of an original Bored Ape, so you've got an actual real one, we're going to allow retrospective, basically to pass it through proof of view and have it proof of view certified. So you're going to be able to do that retrospectively. So current people who own NFTs that are originals will be able to have them certified through proof of view. That's like down the line functionality, but we are going to allow that. And obviously all the ones minted through our Veriverse NFT marketplace, they're going to have proof of view certification from that point of mint. So yeah, it's really powerful technology. It uses the same patent as our proof of view for our ad tech stack, but it's essentially just that proof of origin of NFTs.
What I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around what that still means. Like, what does it mean to use the proof of view protocol to have that origin data stored within the service? You know, is that just more metadata attached to the NFT, or like? I guess I'm still wondering, in this use case, how does it help prevent fraud? Like, I could still go steal a JPEG of the Mona Lisa and go mint it with proof of view, and you know, like, so I'm not really totally following how it helps prevent the fraud aspect.
Yeah, so I mean, proof of view would comb like, well, our Vera Vault would comb like existing artwork, so it could tell if you weren't the original creator and say, well, this has been around for 200 years, so you definitely didn't make it yesterday. But the what we actually want to get to is the point where every single NFT marketplace has proof of view certification as like a standard for NFTs going through their marketplace. So you wouldn't be able to sell an NFT unless it had proof of view certification. So it's sort of like a worldwide standard, a little like, I don't know if you guys have it in Canada, but in the in the UK, we have the ISO standards. So the ISO standards go on products, and you can't sell that product unless it's ISO certified. You could sell it peer to peer. You could go down like your local market and sell a product that wasn't ISO certified, but you'll never get it into a shop. No one like professional will ever touch it. We need something similar for NFTs, and that can be proof of view. So if you want to buy like an official NFT through an official marketplace, then yeah, it has to be, or hopefully we want it to get to the point where it has to be proof of view.
To me, there's a lot of use cases that are popping into my mind. I mean, probably the most relevant one for myself was when I was trying to purchase just like a version of like a rare Pepe kind of thing. And to do it through OpenSea, I was going through something called Emblem Vault, and like just the process to make sure you're getting a legit one seemed like I don't claim to be overly intelligent in the space at all, but like I know a little bit, and like for me it was super confusing and everything along those lines. So I think that verification piece is important. I want to give you just a quick two-part question to kind of wrap up this topic. But first off, is OpenSea open to that type of thing? Like you mentioned, your goal is to get them embedding that. Like, is this something that they're showing warmth to that idea? And then the second part, maybe you could just finish with, what safety tips do you have out there for people? Like, obviously this technology is not there yet, but like, what can they do now to make sure they're not minting one of the 80%, that are fraudulent?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. So we haven't had discussions with like other NFT marketplaces yet. I mean, our first focus is going to be to launch our own NFT marketplace and our own minting protocol. I don't see why like the NFT industry as a whole would shun such a thing. I think it would sort of get to the point where we would have peer-to-peer protocols like we've got Uniswap. Anyone can create a token and sell it on Uniswap if it's an ERC20 token. Everyone knows there's a good deal of like Uniswap scams out there, like scam projects which go through Uniswap as their first port of call, but Uniswap itself isn't responsible for that. But then you've got other projects which launch, like a serious token, and maybe they launch first on like a centralized exchange, something that can be like that custodian to make sure that quality is maintained. So I think that it will sort of get to a point where NFT marketplaces, similarly to DEXs versus centralized exchanges, will have to make that. They'll have to make that choice about which route they want to take. Do they want to only offer like NFTs that have been proven to be from curated collections that are real, or do they want to offer every single NFT and maybe there's loads of fraudulent ones in there? So I don't think that it's gonna, I don't think it's going to push out like peer-to-peer marketplaces. Obviously some people will still want to buy those like smaller batch mints that maybe don't want to go through the process of getting proof of view verified, and that's fine. There's still going to be a market for that. But for when you're talking parting with thousands of dollars of like USDT or something for an NFT, you want to know that that's certified, especially when you get into the realms of like tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of millions, which some NFTs go for. There needs to be like this standard certification. And then onto the second part of your question, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't actually know how you would do that other than following along with some of the official channels that do like NFT drops and this sort of thing, and just following the official links and these sort of things and the official ones that they share. So OpenSea and loads of other NFT marketplaces, they do like official drops that drop at a certain time. Obviously you can be sure that they're real, but it's then when you move on to the secondary market and peer-to-peer markets that you might think that you're buying a really rare Bored Ape, and it's not, sort of thing. So I think that's where the issues come in when you get to the secondary market.
All right, let's jump into esports. Esports is a huge industry. It's growing tons, but not everyone knows that. Can you maybe paint a picture for those of our audience who maybe aren't so familiar with esports? Just how big is this? Is that world, and why is something like the technology Verasity is building important to esports?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, esports is growing like basically exponentially. I think I read earlier this week that it's actually taken over the NBA now in terms of viewership. So wow. Tons and tons of people are tuning into esports tournaments. Now, there's a few different types of like esports content. There's like user-generated content, which is like people on like YouTube and Twitch, and maybe in the future VeraEsports. That basically they're like a personality, like an influencer or like a streamer, and they make like user-generated content. And then there's also like official tournaments from games developers. So like we've got like Riot Games, or Steam, these sort of things, PUBG, like Krafton Games. And those are like official tournaments where like official teams play. So you have like playoffs around the world, and it's just like sports teams, and sometimes now even bigger than original sports teams. And these teams get sponsorship. They play like proper matches that people tune in on. It's a bit like watching like a football match, where you've got one team versus the other and they're playing an esports game. So those are like the two main content streams. There's also coming up, and it's not really it's like sort of like a blurred line between esports and just watching people do their things. So there's like loads of streamers now that just sort of chat. They're playing a game casually. They're just like sort of just chatting with their fans. That's also becoming absolutely huge as well. So there's a massive opportunity here for like advertising. The route that we're going down is through the official route of like contacting and getting partnerships with games developers and broadcasting their tournaments from specific geographic regions. This we see as probably being like the most important one for driving traffic, but also for like advertising, so we can use our VeraViews ad tech stack on that. And also for signing those deals with like games developers so that we can get exclusive like in-game items to mint as NFTs and make available through our Veriverse NFT marketplace. So some of the one of the partners that we've got at the moment is Riot Games. Obviously, they make League of Legends. They do Valorant as well, which is what we've been streaming on VeraEsports, and they're owned by Tencent. And we're also in talks with, other esports game developer companies that want to run esports tournaments. So this is just such a huge and like rapidly changing industry. But yeah, we think that focusing on tournaments and making them so that you can't watch them anywhere else except for VeraEsports is like a key strategy that we're going to go after. So we streamed the Valorant Champions Tour, and that's still ongoing. There's a couple of like legs left of that tour, and we stream like the APAC region, so the Asia Pacific. So yeah, that was one of our like exclusive content deals that we got on VeraEsports.
Very cool. Gaming's an interesting one because I remember about a year ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, Ulf and I were having a conversation, and it was kind of that mental model that finally clicked into space or into place for us, like why an NFT could be valuable. And that was, we're using Fortnite as an example, and well, people are clearly, like our friends are paying money for Fortnite skins. This is something clearly like they want their digital flex or for whatever reason. And how much sense would it make to be able to own that digital item? But then you start to think about where that could go from there. Sure, you can sell that on a secondary, but maybe you can take that into a different game and then it has different utility and all those sorts of things. Can you paint a picture for us? Like, because this is one thing we always love to do with guests, is just kind of like crystal ball gaze into what the future could look like. But like, how do you see NFTs playing a role in gaming in the future?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there is that element of it, like having that transferability. At the moment, if you like, players spend hours and hours like collecting in-game items, and then one day the developers could wake up, say there's no money left in the pot, pull the plug and walk away, and all of that user-generated content is gone. If that were NFTs, they would still be there on the blockchain. Maybe like community groups could like be spun off and, carry on the game, or like make user community-based servers and that sort of thing. Bring those NFTs and items that they've worked really hard to get into like a new game, or a game like an old game that they've built out a server for. So that's one element of it. The other element is just allowing content creators like free reign. So some of like the in-game skins and artwork and this sort of thing that people have like made for like CSGO and some of these classic games, like multiplayer games, are absolutely crazy. And there's tons out there at the moment. They sit on like marketplaces like Valve, like Steam Marketplace. But we could actually empower content creators and people who want to make those like skins and things to make like an NFT series out of them, so they could sell them to other players. Say they've got a really cool design for like, I don't know, like an in-game helmet or something for like PUBG, which is something I play a lot. If that was on an NFT marketplace and then available in game, a really talented designer could make that helmet design and then monetize it, so they could sell it. So that's another one. And then what we're really interested in is like actual official drops. So say Riot Game had like a Valorant tour. Anyone who turns up at the arena gets a code where they can redeem like an in-game item because they actually turned up to a physical event. they already do that. They issue those items, but they're not stored on the blockchain, so you can't own them indefinitely. So, I mean, what I would probably say is, and maybe we're actually taking a step back rather than like looking into the crystal ball and going forward. I watched the first Pokemon, probably showing my age now, but I watched the first Pokemon movie in the cinema when it came out when I was a kid. And they gave everyone who turned up like a shiny Mewtwo Pokemon card. I've still got that card, but if I had been issued something in a game back in, I don't know when it was it early 2000s or like late 90s? I can't remember, but I guarantee the game servers for that game would have shut down. I would have lost that item. It would have been gone like into the electronic ether, and that would have been a shame, really. So with an NFT, we can actually ensure that it lives on the base protocol. So, that's not owned by anyone. It's decentralized. I think as long as they're internet, things like Ethereum is going to be running. So it basically takes things like trading cards would be like a physical item and makes them, immutable and there forever on the blockchain. So that's where I see like there being real value that we can hand things down and they're not at the mercy of just like a centralized entity anymore.
Do you have any idea what that Pokemon card is worth? Like what people are flipping it for, that type of thing on eBay these days? No idea?
No idea. No. My mom's got it somewhere, I think.
Nice. So I got a question since we're on the topic of NFTs in games. Everything we've talked about sounds pretty awesome. It's awesome for the players. Like, who wouldn't want that? And that seems to be the case whenever, at least I talk about NFTs in gaming. But if you look at any news headline around any game company who's talked about, introducing NFTs to their games, it's gone really bad. It's like gamers hate the idea. And I don't understand why. Maybe I don't understand what those companies were proposing. But do you have any familiarity with that, and what's your take?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different like elements at play here. So for one, I think that a lot of gamers have like seen all the negative headlines about NFTs going for ridiculous sums of money. We're talking about NFTs that would be, like some of them would be ultra rare, of course, and they'd have high valuations, but many of them would be like your everyday transactions. Like there's already the Steam marketplace where you can buy items like loot chests and this sort of thing for very reasonable sums of money. And there is millions of dollars of transaction volume to there. So that's one. As we see like layer 2 scaling solutions for Ethereum and like other cheaper blockchains, the transactions to buy those NFTs will be as cheap as buying it from a centralized marketplace. So that's one, I think, is the cost involved and the ridiculous valuations. But I think that is going to sort of, like pan out over the medium term. The other one is that the infrastructure just isn't there. So I was talking about this on another podcast. So I found it really interesting. I was doing some research for this, pretty much this exact question. And the first game console to offer internet gaming was actually an Apple device. It was called the Apple Pippin. And it was back in like the late 90s. So the Apple Pippin was like this revolutionary gaming device that offered player to player, like internet gaming. And it was a total flop. Like barely anyone bought it. And it was because the people at home, they only had like dial up, they could barely even load like 1 megapixel web page. So there just wasn't the infrastructure there to even play games. So the user experience was terrible. And it wasn't until some years later that the internet-based gaming became like just the thing to do. Like you can't really find a game with split screen now because everyone plays with their friends online. And we're at a similar point with NFTs. So NFTs have usability, just like internet gaming had usability, but until now they've been a bit ahead of their time. The infrastructure hasn't been there to make them useful, but more importantly, to make them like a seamless experience. You've still got to interact with like Web3 wallets. There's still not an easy way to like get an NFT with fiat. You have to like convert it. You have to go through all these hoops, transaction costs, this sort of thing. So although like the utility's there, the actual infrastructure is still like pretty crap across the board, especially if you're a gamer. You just want to play your game, you just want to get an item. It needs to be easier. So that's one of the things that we're working on with Veriverse. We're going to make it easier than ever for people to interact with NFTs. But I think that's been one of the major stumbling blocks now is we're basically asking people who know nothing about crypto. I know that's a broad generalization. I'm sure there's loads of gamers who are interested in crypto, but we're going out to this broad audience and asking them to adopt an entirely new technology, even though we're not making it any easier for them to do that. So I think that's the point we're at as an industry. Like, I would compare us to like early internet gaming. Yeah.
Elliot, well explained. That makes perfect sense. And you know what I find fascinating is that you've been with Verasity since January 1st. They're already putting you up as the spokesperson for the project, which is pretty impressive. But you haven't stumbled on any of these. You know what's happening inside and out. So kudos to you on that. We like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3 questions we ask every single guest. It's a segment we call "You Had Me at Crypto." So Ulf's going to ask you those questions.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right. The first question, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Oh, that's a really good question. Obviously, like I'm contractually obliged to say my boss, Mark. I'm not
Other
sure
than your
actually.
boss.
Yeah. So I mentioned at the start of the podcast that I'm really into like the Cardano ecosystem. I still follow it along. I worked with those guys for a year. Some really great guys at the foundation. I think as a layer 2, as like a protocol, they're really interesting. And one of the most controversial, but I think intelligent figures in the crypto space is Charles Hoskinson. There's some great insights, but also some great, let's say, discussions that he kicks off with people. And he's not afraid to tell people when he thinks they're wrong or they've approached the problem in the wrong way. So I really like following some of Charles's escapades, I think are probably the right word. And I think he's not doesn't get as much recognition as he should. So that's probably my answer. Yeah.
This isn't one of the 3 questions we usually ask in the end segment, but I have to throw it in. Why do you think Cardano gets so much shade?
I think because of the time that it probably launched. So, I mean, it launched around, like 2017 is when it launched, and Ethereum was really like at that point building out a smart contract ecosystem, and it already had like this budding and really core developer base that had started building out on Solidity. And then Cardano came and said, wait, no, you should all be building in Plutus, and you should all be building in Haskell. And Cardano has this focus on like an academic approach and also like formal methods, which is quite different to Ethereum. And I just think they're basically 2 very different schools of thought. And I think that's where all of like the I would say like rivalry has stemmed from. That's my 2 cents on that anyway. Yeah.
That's fair. And just to plug it, since you mentioned Charles Hoskinson, we did do an interview with him. It was a year ago now, but it was a great interview. And he was a great guest. Very interesting indeed. So check it out.
Oh, nice.
The second question here. All right. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I always try and shy away from like price related questions.
But that's the beauty about this one. It's 10 years out. There's no pressure.
We're all going to be wrong.
This clearly isn't financial advice. It's throwing a dart at a...
Yeah.
I think like probably with my PR and comms hat on, where I try not to be give a concrete answer to things like this. I would say as long as it's higher than the inflation would be on whatever fiat money I've got in the bank would be good. But I think that we're definitely going to see it go past its current, it's past all-time highs, if nothing else, because in 10 years I think we'll have another halving. So I think we could get another pump after that. The scarcity is always going to be going down as well as more people acquire Bitcoin. So I wouldn't want to put an exact number on it, but I definitely think it'll be higher than its past all-time highs. Yeah.
It's all right. I understand. You're basically saying 500,000. All right. Third question. What is the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto?
I would probably say, obviously, naturally, I would say Verasity.
Other than Verasity, you got to say something there.
Yeah.
Other than Verasity, I'm not sure really. I'm really interested in crypto.com. So we actually just listed on crypto.com on Verasity. So, and I'm a Crow holder as well. And I use their cards a lot, and they had that really good run up a few months ago. And then it's sort of the whole crypto market took a big dump, and they haven't really recovered those all-time highs since. But in the meantime, they've rolled out the Kronos network, which has already got loads of DeFi protocols building on it. They've got some wicked staking through their DeFi app. So that for me is sort of I don't see why a lot of other alts have sort of recovered, and they haven't recovered their all-time highs from that mini run-up we had, but they've definitely recovered more against Bitcoin and that sort of thing than Crow has. So I find that pretty interesting, just from a point of view of they've deployed loads of technology and this sort of stuff, and they've deployed their own network, but they're not seeing much growth. So yeah.
Do you think that the CRO token, I don't want to speculate manipulation, but being centralized as crypto.com is, I believe they can issue out new tokens whenever they want. Do you think that there's risk there, going into a project that is maybe centralized in nature with how they issue their tokens?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at centralized projects, Binance Coin would be the same. BNB would be in a similar boat, and even Ethereum, the Ethereum Foundation, don't have an upper limit on how many Ethereum can be minted. If you look on CoinMarketCap, it's got an infinite supply. I know that's slightly different because it's DAO run, it's totally decentralized, but with centralized exchange coins, I think you've got to take that trust factor, which is ironic because we talked about trustless before and how blockchain does that. But I do think when you're dealing with Binance or crypto.com, they're regulated entities, obviously if you're buying some really unknown exchange token that launched last month and they're not regulated anywhere, obviously approach it with caution. And that's not to say that the bigger exchanges don't do what they want either, but I think that they're more heavily regulated. And this is something actually that is pretty interesting in the UK. The Chancellor of the Exchequer here in the UK has just basically put out a request for crypto experts to go and talk about how they can more heavily not regulate crypto assets, but assets that are issued by centralized crypto companies, and how they can basically help people stop getting defrauded by that. So I think they're more closely under the eyes now of regulators than ever. So I get the feeling they know they need to play by the book, basically. Yeah.
Well, Elliot, this has been an awesome conversation. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to follow along now that Verasity is on my radar to watch kind of all the things that you're involved with. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with Alf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Thanks, guys. It's been a really, really great podcast. Great to be here.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.